So my children are neurodivergent children. Their brains are wired a little differently, and they experience the world a little differently. And that's okay. It was designed that way. And it's purposeful and it's beautiful. And that's the reason why I wrote The Beauty of Us All, just to share just how beautiful we are, how our differences make us unique, and that how boring it would be if we were all the same, right? If everybody was the same, as actually we would look like robots.
Yes, exactly. Welcome to the Kindness Is Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the true meaning of kindness. I'm your host, Kaitlin Johnstone, the co-founder of Kind Cotton. Let's dive in. Something that I talk about often on our platform when we're talking about inclusive books is the importance of representation for every child. The importance for every child to see themselves as the prince or the princess, the hero of the story, the center of the book. And then also the importance for every child to see people who are different from them as those characters too. Because we build a sense of community. We build love and empathy and inclusion that way. And I just want to read you a little snippet of the book that my phenomenal guest this week has written. Have you ever looked at the leaves in the fall? All of their amazing colors are enough to take your breath away. Now look closer, and you will see there's beauty within the beauty. Even when leaves are the same color, there is an orchestra of patterns in their veins. Have you ever gazed up at the stars at night? Perhaps you noticed all of their different colors and sizes as they are twinkling in unison in the magical sky. Now we are going to get into both of her incredible books, but I just want you all to think about that, to think about how there are all of these differences amongst us that we should be teaching about, that we should be sharing with our youth, and that we should be celebrating each and every day. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Kindness Is Pod. Today, I have Chandele with me. She is a passionate educator, speaker, and advocate for neurodiversity. She is also a wife and the mother of neurodivergent children navigating autism, ADHD, and dyslexia. Chandele encourages individualized learning, believing every child should be nurtured in a way that caters to their unique needs and abilities. Chandele's enthusiasm for teaching young ones and her determination to connect with parents and educators inspired her to write her children's books. Her best-selling books, The Beauty of All of Us and I'm Just a Kid, a social-emotional book about self-regulation, has been printed and distributed worldwide. Welcome, Chandele. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
You're welcome. So I absolutely love your books. I am impressed by the beauty and the celebration of differences. And I kind of want to start there because it seems as though your life has it's inspired your work.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that, your inspiration behind these two beautiful books?
So my son, at 5 years old, he was diagnosed with autism. Before we always knew that he was a quirky kid. That's the word that we always use. He was quirky. He was fun, energetic, very intelligent. But we knew that there was something a little bit different about him, and other people did too. And I kept trying to get him evaluated so I can understand him a little better, and so that he can understand himself as well. And he just never was able to get any type of diagnosis. I never ever thought that he was autistic because I just didn't understand autism in that way. I didn't know autism could look like him. And so I got him evaluated when he was little, and it was like, oh no, he's fine. He's so smart. He's so cute. No, he definitely doesn't need any type of services. Fine. I did everything I could on my own. when he was in preschool, I got him evaluated again. He said, he's such a cute kid. He doesn't need anything. There's nothing wrong.
Mm.
And then when he got to kindergarten during the pandemic, there was this amazing school psychologist that was seeing exactly what I was seeing. Because of those transitions, he had such a challenging time. And her son was also autistic and had very similar traits to my son. We were able to get him evaluated with a great developmental pediatrician, and she was able to explain to me that he was autistic. I was surprised because I'm like, what? I autism to me, I never expected that my son could be autistic just because I was used to, in my mind, autism looking a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an educator, and I've dealt with children who were autistic, but I've never saw any children with my son's traits. And even when I looked on Google, it didn't show his traits. I learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot from then till now. And I definitely want to teach other people about it. I did notice that people started to treat him a little bit differently because he didn't do everything exactly the same as others. My daughter, when I realized she's older, when I realized that she had ADHD and possibly dyslexia, I started to notice that it affected her socially, her confidence. And kids, they pick up on those things. They start to treat you differently as well. That's the reason why I wrote I'm Just a Kid. It's really just so that it's all about exploring yourself, understanding yourself, being able to reflect on your own emotions, being able to reflect on what works for you when you're trying to regulate your emotions, when you're trying to calm yourself down, when you're trying to do the thing that works for you. And that's what I'm Just a Kid is about. And there's an adult in that book that is really there in the moment, instead of getting frustrated, instead of going with that person's own biases. And when you're dealing with the child, it shows how the adult is able to interact with the child, Ben, in the book. And so that's the reason why I decided to write I'm Just a Kid, just to help others to be able to understand. With The Beauty of Us All, it was a very different, it was very different for the inspiration. My daughter, she went to school. Now my kids, I teach them about kindness, and I teach them about understanding people. I teach them how people are different. And I think that they're both very empathetic because of that. Neurodivergent. I feel as if neurodivergent children are naturally empathetic because they want people to understand themselves. With The Beauty of Us All, there was a little girl in my daughter's school, and she was being bullied at 8 years old. She just came from, I think, Haiti or something. Speak that. Her English was not as strong. And she was winning at a game in gym. And the kids were really upset with her for winning against them. And then they started calling her names based off of the color of her skin. And she had never experienced anything like that before. I wanted to, when my daughter came home and she started to cry and said, "Mommy, I tried to help her. I tried to tell them not to say that, but they wouldn't listen. They just kept on calling her names." My heart broke to see my daughter so brokenhearted, and to think about that little girl who was going home feeling as if she was not beautiful because to them, she was different. And also with my children, who to them, other people see them as different. And they think, okay, different is wrong. It's not wrong. I had to figure out how to share that with those children, and just with children overall, that different is not wrong. Different is different, and different is beautiful. And I was actually in the middle of writing another book at that time. And when my daughter came home and was crying, I paused. I put that book aside and I just started writing. I wrote that book in 2 days just because it was on my heart. And I just wanted to share that no matter what we are going through, no matter what challenges that we may think we have, um, no matter how different we feel, those differences are beautiful, and they're designed that way. I'm just going to show you one of the pictures in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, this one is the mom and the daughter.
Mm.
I took my daughter to the aquarium, and I said to her, "Look at these fish. You see how different they are? They all have different shapes and different sizes, different colors, and they're all amazing, and they're all still beautiful, and they're all fish."
Mm.
And that's how we were created. The same
Mm.
way, we are all different. We have different shapes, we have different sizes, we have different colors, we have different type of hair, and even inside of us is different. So my
Mm.
children are neurodivergent children. Their brains are wired a little differently, and they experience the world a little differently, and that's okay. It was designed that way, just like those fish were designed that way, just like
Mhm.
flowers are designed that way. And it's purposeful and it's beautiful. And that's the reason why I wrote The Beauty of Us All, just to share just how beautiful we are, how our differences make us unique,
Mhm.
and that how boring it would be if we were all the same, right?
Mhm.
If everybody was the same, as actually we would look like robots.
Yes, exactly.
And that is why I wanted to, that's what I wanted to share with people. Um, you don't have to worry about, oh, my hair is too short, or one of my hands has one finger missing. It doesn't matter. That's
Mhm.
who you are, and that's what makes you unique, and that's what makes you beautiful. And it's just so important that we're able to, with both books are about self-reflection. And it's so important that we're able to self-reflect and to appreciate who we are, and also to appreciate the people that's around us as well.
Yes.
So I'm really talking a lot.
No, please, because it's so beautiful and it's so relatable and it's so what is needed, right? And it's so everything that we attempt to do with the books that we choose, that we donate, that we talk about, and why inclusive education is
Mhm.
so important and why representation is so important. And there are two major things that you talked about within each of the books that I would love to perhaps dive a little bit deeper with.
Sure.
One, with your first book, there's something that I think is so crucial to understanding that children are human beings
Yeah.
who deserve the space and just opportunity to regulate, opportunity to have difficult times, opportunity to feel their feelings. And
Mhm.
I think that can get very overwhelming for us adults sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a retraining of our brains to breathe and to remain in that calm and to help them through that and to provide them the language and the
Yeah.
ability to do so. And I so appreciate that from your first book because I feel like that's really what you were going for there.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's so easy to kind of be in your own emotions and forget that the
Mm,
person that you are raising, or the student that's in your class, is really just learning about their emotions. They might not even understand their own emotions. And so as adults, sometimes we get caught up in them, and we have a hard time regulating our own emotions. We might yell, we might stomp our feet, or we might slam something down. And the child that we're working with has such a hard time to control their own emotions. Sometimes they need our help.
mm,
And there's one thing that I always like to remind people when I sometimes do trainings, teacher trainings, parent trainings.
mhm,
I remind people to share your calm.
mm,
Don't share your dysregulation. That doesn't help anybody.
mm,
Share your calm. When your child is dysregulated, when your student is dysregulated, sometimes they just need you to remain calm
mhm,
and to teach them how to also regulate their own emotions. So sometimes a tight hug, you know,
mhm,
they might have done something that was completely, not appropriate, and they're just in complete dysregulation. And that moment is not even the time for you to say, you were not supposed to do that. And this is what you're supposed to, because they can't take it all in.
I'm not going to hear it.
They just need an embrace to just calm down. My son, my husband and I, we're always talking about this. Sometimes with him, we refer to it as like a jar. During his day when he's not with us, he may have a challenging time. And when we're talking to him, we say, sometimes your jar throughout the day can end up getting filled with all of these emotions that you're trying to keep in. And when you get home, because he was just like, why do I have meltdowns all the time when I'm at home? When you get home, sometimes your jar might be a 1/4 full. And sometimes your jar might be 3/4 full. And maybe you might just have 2% left of space in your jar. And then the little things that come onto you when you're at home, the little frustrations, like you're doing your homework and your pencil broke, that might allow your jar to overflow. And so these are ways as adults that we can help to share our calm and also to teach regulation, just to help them to be able to understand themselves, right? So
it's so important. It's so important. I could talk about that all day, every day, particularly having been an educator and now being the parent of a 3.5-year-old. It's something that I have to remind myself every day.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that all of us adults have to remind ourselves. And I just really appreciate that you put something out into the world that really connects with children and connects with adults alike, because we learn so much from picture books.
Yeah.
We learn so much from picture books. I think adults learn just as much as children, and that's something that I say all the time, which leads me into this other phenomenal book that you have written. And the one thing that I want to point out is that this book teaches the beauty of individuals in a way that is so perfect for children. I mean, even on the first page, it opens up and it says, have you ever seen snow? Have you ever opened up your mouth and caught a snowflake on your tongue? Then have you ever dug deeper and seen that every snowflake could be different sizes? And have you noticed the different colors of the leaves when they fall, and just the different intricacies of all of these things in nature, right? Things that children can really relate to. And then it opens up that discussion to talk about how each of us are different. And instead of othering people, like you mentioned, that little girl in your daughter's class had to experience, we are embracing those differences and we're saying, hey, I love that you are different from me. I acknowledge that you are different from me, and I'm going to embrace those differences as opposed to other those differences, as I said, and opposed to do the things that unfortunately in society happen all too often. And we should be having those conversations.
Yeah. One of the things that I absolutely love to do when I do author visits, and anybody wants an author visit, you let me know. I do virtual as well. But one of the things that I love to do when I do author visits, and I'm reading The Beauty of Us All, is that I love to, in the end, especially there's a page where it shows the mom's hand and the daughter's hand. And both of them are, they both have darker skin, but they have different complexions. And the mom says, look at my hand, now look at yours. That's me and my daughter. I am darker skin and she is very light skin. And in my family, we have a variation of complexions. My daughter used to ask if she was mixed just because. And I'm like, well, in a way, our complexions are all mixed together and you guys have different variations. But when I do the author visits, and it's that page, I tell the children, okay, put your hands out like this and show it to your friend that's next to you. Now look at their skin. look at your skin, look at their skin. Now I want you to say these words. You ready? And they go, yeah. I'm saying, say, you are amazing. And it's so lovely when they say that. They're looking at themselves and they're looking at their friends and they're seeing the differences and they're appreciating them as well. Because
Mm-hmm.
colors, it's all about colors. And then there's no color that's better than the other color. And
Mm-hmm.
just for them to start there, that's such a small thing to say, you're amazing. Just basically looking at their own hands. It's such a small thing, but it will allow them to grow to see the person,
Mm-hmm.
the whole person, and see the differences in the whole person and look at them and think, wow, these differences are amazing. So,
Yeah, I love that. And the thing is, another thing that I talk about often is that children understand that. Children get that. And if we are actively teaching that from a young age, they're going to have the tools necessary to stand up in situations when your daughter's classmate experienced what they experienced. And I
yeah,
think that's what's so important about recognizing our differences
yeah.
as uniqueness
Mm-hmm.
and as beautiful. You know, just I want to say about a week ago, we were on the playground and there was a little girl who was speaking Spanish. And she was about the same age as my daughter, and she wanted to play with my daughter. And my daughter and her started playing. And at times, my daughter was asking what the little girl was saying. And I mean, minimal, very minimal. I was able, to ask the little girl what her name was in her language and how old she was. And I said, "Isn't that wonderful, Kenzie, that you and this little girl are having so much fun together, even though you aren't speaking the same language? And isn't it wonderful that you can learn things from this little girl because her language is just as beautiful as our language?" And she got it. And she's interested, now in speaking other languages and thought it was an incredible experience and valued this little girl's language as opposed to othering her language, which is something that I feel as though happens all too often.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's it's really just that important
Absolutely.
for
Yep.
caregivers to share that message with their children, with their students, with the next generation.
Absolutely. I agree. I feel as if, you know, our children are our future, and that
Mhm.
sounds so cliche, but it
I
is.
know, I know.
It sounds so cliche, but if we want this to see our generation, we want to see it improve. We
Mhm.
have to start where we're teaching them about love, and we have to start where we're teaching them about accepting others and appreciating others as well.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, appreciating them and actual inclusion, right?
absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
for sure, regardless of what it is. I mean, I just found out myself a couple of weeks ago, that I am ADHD, and the things that make sense now, it's it is just it's tremendous. So allowing
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so happy just to be able to allow myself the grace and the understanding and
Yes.
the hey, my brain is beautiful in a different type of way has been so rewarding for me.
Hmm.
And it's just something that we need to pass down to everyone. And I appreciate the work that you were doing. And I think, as always, whenever I have someone on the podcast, we have really discussed kindness in such a global way throughout this entire discussion. But as you know, I always ask everyone if they had to come up with a definition, what would it be for you?
Okay, so if I had to come up with a definition for kindness, I would say kindness is about treating people the way you would want to be treated
Hmm.
and seeing people through eyes of love,
Hmm.
seeing their differences, seeing their similarities, and understanding them. truly understanding them, including them, and helping them to know that they are important. That's kindness, I believe.
Yeah, me too. I think that's beautiful. Chandele, before we wrap up, I want to know how people can support you, where they can get your books, where they can follow you for any more information. Just tell us all the things.
Okay. So you can go to my website. It's www.morrishousepublishers.com. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Diversity of Minds. And there I do also teach about neurodiversity for parents and also tips in the classroom as well. So
I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
awesome. It was so awesome to be with you guys.
Thank you. My wish for all of you this week and moving forward is that we all remember that every child, every human deserves to feel seen, loved, and valued for who they are. And I hope that when faced with a situation such as the little girl was in the story that Chandele shared, we show up. Our children show up because of what it is that we've taught them. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Kindness Is podcast. If you love it and it's adding even a little bit of value to your life, we would love, love, love if you could subscribe, rate, and review so we can reach even more people and make this world a little bit more kind.